Hey everybody, how you doing? It is I, Brandy, otherwise known as the Terrorific Lady. Welcome to Retro Horror School Talks, where I drag people on here kicking and screaming to talk about what else retro horror and retro horror related topics. And with me is a guy that I've been following on Threads since the very beginning, since Threads first started. But first time on the show, author Bryan Way, who I guess loves zombies because he's written books involving zombies. So welcome, Bryan. It's so great to have you here.
So great to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Yes. Now I want you to talk a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do. Talk a little bit about what you've written involving zombies.
Well, the zombie bug bit me back in 1997 when I saw the commercial for Resident Evil 2. Hadn't played or even heard of the first one, and so went out to Blockbuster and rented it. Failed miserably at it at first, but was certainly intrigued, and then very quickly was like, there's got to be more stuff like this. And so I went back and they had the can cut of Dawn of the Dead, and that was the first zombie movie I'd actually sat down and watched intentionally, and it just blew me away. The writing bug was sort of gnawing at me by that point, and I clearly found my medium then. That it was just like, yep, I'm going to be writing zombie short stories now for the foreseeable future. So I went to film school at Temple. I had a brief dalliance in Hollywood. I was actually an intern for Shia LaBeouf the summer Transformers came out, but didn't get a gig because of the Writers Guild strike. So it was like, well, I can stay in Los Angeles, maybe be a video store clerk there, or go home and live with my parents and not have to pay rent. So the latter one. And ultimately used that time to start preparing, writing these books that I had been working on, and finally just decided I was going to punch the throttle and go self-publishing because it didn't seem like anybody was more interested in them than I was, other than my parents, of course. But yeah, that ended up being first book, Life After the Arising, second book, Life After the Void, and then also 7 short stories. So I won't go too deep into them, but it's a zombie apocalypse story. The real big thing is that they know it's a zombie apocalypse. All of the zombie media of the past is canonized in this series, so they've seen movies like 28 Days Later, and they talk about the fact that they're ironically in a zombie apocalypse that has been essentially told by pop culture. I try to have it be the best of the medium if I can. I want it to be scary and gory and funny and have adventure, but also have some philosophical elements, some cultural critiques and that sort of thing. And I think I thread the needle pretty decently, but it remains to be seen if it's going to be the next HBO adaptation.
Hey, you never know. You never know. So we're going to make sure that, or I'm going to make sure to get the links for all your books, of all your books from you, the words, and I'll make sure to link them down in the description below so everybody can check them out.
Yeah, so the one last thing about that though is, so the anthology, I actually tried to do it just a paperback release without actually making it available, but for the first time I've decided, with the coinciding of this show airing, this is going to be available on Amazon.
Ooh! Yay! I'm special.
You sure are.
Yeah. So we are digging into a movie that came out in 2002. Very hard to find on physical media. I had to go get my copy on eBay. So if anybody's like, girl, I want a copy, eBay is probably your best bet. That's where I got mine. But 28 Days Later, directed by Danny Boyle. And it's a movie that I feel completely changed the game for zombie horror. I call them zombies. Some people don't. You may also have some thoughts on that, whether you consider them zombies or not, because to this day, it's still a giant debate on if they actually are. But I feel it's just very visually intense, very emotionally striking, and just something that I love rewatching a lot. I've seen it too many times, just to count. I feel it's an amazing movie. I can't wait to geek out about it with you tonight.
No,
so I have to ask before we start anything, do you consider them zombies, yes or no?
Yes. Yeah, unequivocally. So I guess generally speaking, I'm not a huge fan of like gatekeeping. We have our own ways of doing that, our own peccadillos on that front. But this particular one irks me because I think it's like the argument over 28 Days Later and them not being zombies is taken from a very literal place. Because it was mentioned in an interview, and Alex Garland pointed out that they were not zombies because they weren't actually dead. But he also simultaneously acknowledged that George Romero was a big influence on like what he had done for this, that and Day of the Triffids. And I think the fan culture took that as like, well, what the writers said they're not zombies, so they're not zombies. Like, don't even pretend. But like, the definition is malleable. I mean, like when George Romero made zombies eat people, that was pretty novel in 1967. Zombies had never eaten
Yeah.
people before that. So if we can change the definition there, I don't see why we can't change it to fit something like this. I mean, as far back as I have done the research for the medium for like the zombie genre and whatnot, and where it comes from in religion and stuff like that,
Mhm.
the whole thing has always been about a loss of autonomy. That is what the zombie is really about. And so anything where human beings lose their bodily autonomy, I think fits safely in the zombie overhead.
Yeah, but I completely agree. I've always thought that they were zombies, just strictly just like because of that, because they lose what makes them human. And if they
Yep.
lose what makes them human, no longer human, they're obsessed with infecting others, they're zombies. That's my
And
definition.
honestly, one of the greatest things about 28 Years Later is that they actually use the word zombie in that movie. So it's like
Yes, yes.
silence now. I don't hear any more arguments about whether or not they're zombies. So
Yeah, so maybe that debate will finally officially come to rest because it's been an ongoing one since 2002.
mhm.
All right, and
But so
speaking of,
I'm
oh,
curious. Oh, go ahead.
oh no, go ahead.
I was gonna say, how did you first engage with 28 Days Later? Like what was the moment that you found out about its existence? Do you remember?
Oh boy, yeah. I didn't get to see it in theaters, unfortunately, so I missed that. I first saw it at a video rental store about I think about late 2003, and I've been a big fan of zombies. I've always loved zombies ever since I first saw Night of the Living Dead. That was my first zombie movie as well. So I saw that, looked interesting. I 28 days later picked it up off the shelf, rented it, brought it home, and my mind was just utterly blown. I'd never seen anything like it, like at all. It's like, wow. Even to this day, I'll watch it. I'll still be like, wow.
Yeah, no, so funny you mentioned that. Like that was my main gig up until recently. I spent 14 years working at a video store that only closed in 2021. And so the
Oh
whole
wow.
physical media thing, like I adore it. Like my entire apartment is filled with discs of this. I got the 4K HD, Ultra HD Dawn of the Dead right behind me right here. And so like yeah, the idea that you can own a piece of art and also like lend it to people and look at it whenever you want. Like streaming does not have that going for it. And I mean, there's innumerable times where it's just like, oh yeah, streaming's got everything. And it's like, well, no, it really doesn't. And 28 Days Later is a perfect example. So like we had a couple of copies of that at the store because you couldn't stream it anywhere. So anytime someone wanted to watch it, they swung by the video store. So yeah, that's I've got that in my DNA at this point, I would say.
Yeah. I worked at a video store for about a year and a half. So that was like my one of my dream jobs is just to be able to like work at a video store. And I got to from 2005 to 2007. So
Yeah, right in the sweet spot. Yeah, I mean, doing it up until 2021, I mean, the whole time people were telling us we were insane, it wasn't going to work, and it's like, well, the store we opened lasted 9 years, well past what everybody thought it was going to, and it wasn't even business that killed us in the end, nor was it COVID, which is what everybody thought was going to kill us. It was just we got outbid on the rent for the space that we were in. A brew pub wanted it more than we did, and honestly, it was really painful at the time. But like the 2 months that it took for us to close the place down, like we had a private sale of all of our discs to our best customers, and then we did like tiers from thereafter. All the clerks got to take home all their favorite movies. Everybody got to have their own movie screening out in the space next to the building, it's the alleyway, I guess. And it's a shame too because one of the things we learned towards the end run is if you own a video rental store, legally speaking, you are allowed to screen movies on your premises, advertise them, and not charge money for them because you're advertising your own product. It's called the fair use policy. And so there was quite a few times where we would just advertise free movie screenings and didn't have to worry about any blowback from, well, we didn't do Disney because we figured they were litigious enough to find a way to make something like that work. But in the end, we showed basically whatever we wanted. Nobody ever complained. It was great.
That sounds like a dream. And 28 days later, do you remember the first time that you saw that movie? I always get curious about just people's first time seeing horror movies. Do you remember when you first saw it?
So I saw either the teaser or the trailer for it in theaters for a different movie. When I got what was going on in the trailer, I was just like, so these British guys think they can do a zombie movie better than George Romero, huh? And then I went and saw it in theaters, like, holy shit. I don't think they did it better, but I think they did it so differently that like it would be impossible not to be blown away by it and fall in love. Like, I mean, everything about that movie was just. And so I went to go see it in theaters again right after I saw it the first time, and then they had added a new ending at one point in theaters, and that was like the reason for them to re-release it. I went then too, and
Oh,
then
yeah.
once I was going to see it with a couple of friends and got into my first car accident, and it prevented me from seeing it 4 times, which that was the part I was the most disappointed about.
Not your accident, but not being able to see it again.
Well, funnily enough, and totally ironic given the circumstances, I was the person who was hurt worse in the accident. I wasn't actually even driving, but I got the sense that we were about to collide. It was raining, the roads were slippery, and like for whatever reason, my last thought was, I don't want the airbag to break my glasses. So I took my glasses off, and then the airbag hit me directly in the eye. So even if I
Oh,
tried to go see it after that, I wouldn't have been able to see it.
oh, jeez. Dude, that sounds like the setup for a horror film. Just driving on a rainy road, like getting an accident.
Yep.
And when I think about this movie, I just think about the way that Danny Boyle approached it, especially with the handheld
Oh yeah.
cinematography, gave it almost kind of a claustrophobic approach. Just I felt like you were kind of right up there in the action, just like with the characters almost. That's what sticks out to me, especially about his approach, is the handheld cinematography. Does anything in particular stick out to you about the way Danny Boyle approached directing this movie?
Yeah, he's so weird. Um, he has these really bizarre, garish stylistic touches. Like, pretty early in the movie when Mark and Selena first meet Jim, and then they go to the pilgrimage to his house. There's a shot of the city, but in the upper right-hand corner, you can see someone's mouth, and it looks like almost like the film had like somebody hadn't cut it properly or something like that. And I
Yeah,
was like,
yeah.
is that a mistake or something? And then when they finally moved down off of it, and you saw that it was like they're projecting onto the table, and then here's these people sleeping or whatever. I was like, that's certainly a decision. But then so I was in high school when the movie came out, and then when I got it on DVD, I was in film school, and one of our film professors asked us to select a scene from a movie that we liked to show to the class, and like what did we like about it or whatever. And so I selected 28 Days Later, and it's that exact scene, but it's a little bit later when Jim goes into the kitchen and he's sort of like reminiscing, like almost
Yeah.
kind of hallucinating a little tiny bit, like the
Mhm.
way that that's shot, like to look almost like the handheld version of a 50s commercial, like a domestic household or something like that or whatever. I was just like, that what a fascinating way to try to engage the audience in understanding that this is his memory of like being in his house or whatever. And then of course they cut to the house being broken into and stuff like that. And the funny part about that was I was so fascinated by the way that he shot the reminisce. That was what that scene was about to me. But then of course the class was just like, so zombies, you just wanted to show us some zombies eating people. And I was just like, not the part that I was drawn to or thinking about, but sure, I guess so.
It's like, no, I wanted you to see this beautiful scene that I love.
And the contrast is great too, because it's like it's very sweet and you get where he's coming from with it or whatever. And then it's just like reality's about to smash in your windows and come chase you down. Just yeah, brutality. That contrast is something that like that I mean, really is what makes that movie, and ultimately, in my opinion, 28 years later, so affecting, is that they don't have any difficulty being silly at times and then contrasting it with something really heartfelt or something really horrifying.
Yeah, that was a complaint that people had is about both those movies. Just, why are these so goofy scenes in this movie? And I'm just like, well, if you're in that kind of situation in an apocalypse, it's not going to be all doom and gloom all the time. You're going to have this human connection. You're going to connect with people. You're still going to make jokes. You're still going to laugh. One of my favorite scenes in 28 Days Later is when Selena sees that grocery store. She's like, hey, stop. Like, let's go shopping. They had that fun little scene just of them shopping in the grocery store. I really liked that scene. I thought it was very simple, very fun, just showed friends or people connecting, just spending time with each other.
Like it seems so obviously drawn on like Dawn of the Dead, like they're enjoying the commercial aspects of the zombie apocalypse or whatever, but it
Yeah.
was just so concise and so perfectly executed and just totally the right thing for that moment in the movie to like, because as an audience, I mean, Garland himself has talked about establishing tone and whatnot in movies. So like he did Never Let Me Go, which is a terrific movie, but he points out that they establish a tone that they maintain throughout the entire movie, and that maybe doesn't always best serve the audience. Like you get caught sleeping in that environment. So he likes to have those change ups. And honestly, as an audience member, I love them too because the horror pops so much more if you have a moment to see the characters be human, be silly, be funny.
Yeah, to me, it feels human, and in certain movies, it really works. Certain movies, it's out of place depending on how the story is and how the script's written. But I feel for apocalypse stories, especially, just interjecting those little moments of humanity and silliness and fun and being able to see the characters. That's where I feel it really works.
Oh, definitely. No, and I have friends in the I mean, whatever, movie watching friends, writer friends or whatever who talk about the apocalypse thing or whatever. And sometimes people are very like, people don't really understand how grim it would be. And I'm like, No, I fully understand how grim it would be, but it's not like it's unheard of to laugh in an uncomfortable or trying situation or whatever. I'm sure at some point in human history, there were a bunch of cave people or whatever who managed to successfully take down a saber-toothed tiger or something like that. And like they were injured and exhausted and they had to cut it up or whatever. And then when they're sitting around the campfire afterwards, one of them farts and then they all just start laughing. Like, it doesn't matter how grim things are. If you don't have that moment of levity to break and remember that you're human, like, I mean, it doesn't have a fabric to it.
Uh, exactly. And I feel that humanity is just a really big part of these kinds of stories, especially when we're focusing on the four main characters. So we have Jim, we have Selena, we have Hannah, and we have Frank. So these are characters that they've lost something, they face moral dilemmas. They're human. So out of these characters, who do you feel drives the story the most or leaves the biggest impression in your mind?
No spoilers, but probably Frank. Um,
Frank.
I mean, because like his I guess connection to all of the characters is to help them really understand the humanity of what's happening. I mean, to him, it's just like he's trying to protect his daughter, and Selena's keeps saying staying alive is the most important thing, and Jim is just sort of coming out of a coma, basically. But
Yeah.
like that's really accepting that once you do decide that you're going to survive in this situation, you have to decide what that survival is going to mean to you. And if it really is just staying alive, then I don't know, climb the tower block, grab all the cans of food you can, and then just sit quietly and wait until what? Like, I don't even know. Like, I mean, he brings the richness of life to those characters and warms Selena ultimately or whatever. And so like I mean obviously Jim is kind of, I mean, he's like the driving force of the story, but he's also more sort of like the vessel for the audience because he wakes up and has no idea what's going on. And then he's very quickly got to figure out how he's going to survive the initial days or whatever. And I mean, I don't know, that journey that he takes from a enfeebled bicycle courier to like a vicious revenant is just like one of the most cathartic things like I've seen in a horror movie. Like that just rules.
Mm-hmm. Yes. No spoilers, but if you're if people are invested seeing maybe evil get their comeuppance, I think they will be satisfied with this movie.
Definitely.
Yeah. And I really like the way they handle how humans would react in this kind of situation, apocalypse, that shows the different ways that they would handle it. For instance, you said Selena said, well, staying alive is it really as good as it gets. And then on the flip side, when they end up going to the is it the army base? I think it's the army base. So I think like Frank hears that recording, and it's just like, hey, we need to like go and travel to this army base. And then you see how those guys handle it, which is very like freaking it's gross. But that with that aside, I think it really digs into human behavior and how humans would behave in that kind of situation.
Yeah, no, so like the getting to the base, or I guess it's really not even like a base, it's just sort of like a traffic stop almost. Like, I mean, they clearly tried to like garrison something there or whatever. And then ultimately they decided that this big expensive house that were like a rich person's house that's nearby is where their base of operations is going to be. And rightfully so. I don't particularly like the military characters.
Mm-mm.
But like their leader, Henry, I don't know. It's not quite a banality of evil sort of thing because he's like kind of charming and kind of charismatic and also very smart. And the way he lays out what ultimately is going to come to pass in the scenario is the way that a person who's like intelligent and eloquent would approach it by saying, oh, yes, now that you've come here, what we ultimately expect is that we're going to have people to help raise a family or whatever. And it's like, yeah, that's the whole raising the family
No.
element's really not the most important sticking point here. And it's not what your soldiers, I have a feeling, are after. But you found a way to express that in a way that made it sound almost reasonable. And yeah, it's disgusting.
Yeah, ew. He skeeves me out so much just as a character. I think because of that, because of the way that you said that he approached, I was just this very charming kind of like, oh, here's how I'm gonna explain it. Here's like what I think about it, and you're just going to accept it, okay? Yeah, yeah, you're just, and so he's very just kind of charming about his insidious intentions, whereas the other soldiers are more in their face about their nasty intentions, except for the sergeant. I think it was the sergeant. The
Sergeant
one,
Farrell.
yeah, Sergeant Farrell. Yeah. I liked him. Out of all the soldiers, I thought he was a cool cat.
I mean, I mean, it's easy to sort of look at them. I mean, especially given like what happens in the end of the movie or whatever, as just sort of this insidious force. But like, there is really like the more I've watched it or whatever, the more like rich the characterization comes across. Because obviously Farrell's like a complete outcast, and nobody really likes him or wants to spend time with him. And then some of them are obviously really huge cowards, and but like other ones like they're engaging with this, but like you can see it in their faces that they know how wrong it is, and
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
being able to have like be able to capture that and not have it be this like farcical, like clearly they're just the embodiment of evil or whatever. Like give us a moment to be like, well, I mean, there's some moral grayness there. They're kind of going through with it and they're on the sidelines, and maybe somebody else is driving the narrative a bit more. But yeah, I mean, it just goes to show what would happen in a circumstance like that, and being able to see it with enough richness in the characterization or whatever. Again, it just makes everything so much better.
Yes, yes. It's everything is just so intense in this movie. From the characterization to the rage virus concept to everything. Everything just I feel in this movie at times is dialed up to 11 because even more so the fact that the rage virus is something that could technically be plausible considering its mode of transmission. Yeah, but that aside, do you think that this movie works better as a horror movie, just a straight up horror movie, as something that offers like here's social commentary, or as both? Is it a horror movie with social commentary? Is it just horror, or does it have just social commentary?
I mean, I think the best stuff in that realm does both kind of seamlessly. Like I mean, Dawn of the Dead nailed the whatever consumerism of the time with a shopping mall full of zombies. It's a pretty huge
Mhm.
slam dunk in terms of social criticism, but it does
Oh
all
yeah.
the things a zombie movie needs to do. And so I don't know that 28 Days later has as much of a specific target in mind for something like that. I've definitely read essays of people who feel that this was a response to like a lot of specific things post like 9/11 and stuff like that. And I guess I don't see any really strong agenda, but like it is kind of like whatever. It's dissecting like certain elements of social structure and stuff like that that are fascinating. But like I think on its surface, it does more operate as just like a really dramatic horror film.
Right. Uh, I do see a lot of. I know it's considered like part of the post 9/11 zombie renaissance. So it's when zombie movies started to kind of come back into the forefront again. And I see it more just as a commentary of humanity. I think it's going along the lines of George Romero always liked to comment on the nature of humanity, like in his zombie films. So I feel that's what 28 Days Later was doing too, very subtly, not overt, but very subtly. I feel like the best social commentary in horror movies, such as 28 Days Later, or just really any zombie movie in particular, is the one that doesn't have to try too hard. Like it's there, it's subtle, it's lurking beneath the surface, it's not trying too hard, it's just waiting for you to unearth it and find it.
Yeah, no. So going to film school, one of my favorite professors was actually an Academy Award winning production designer. His name was Paul Silbert. And if you can believe it, he had an identical twin brother who was also a production designer, who was also an Academy Award winner. And the two of them
Oh wow.
actually yeah, kind of revolutionized production design in movies. They worked on stuff like The Graduate, Dick Tracy, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Like I mean, it's a whole bunch of great stuff
Wow.
that the two of them have done. And in the end run, he ended up becoming a professor who was very like straight laced about his approach to movies and whatnot. And so one of the things he pointed out to me as a student was that like a lot of filmmakers get caught up on what he referred to as their darlings, which are the theme, the metaphor, the thing that you're trying to make it about. But he was very direct in saying that like uh cinema is a form of short order cooking. I'm not saying that it's not art, but like it's simplicity and directness are two of its virtues, and I have completely embraced that in watching movies. It's like I do love artsy stuff sometimes. I do love stuff that has lots of like subtext layered into it or whatever, but in the end of the day, like if you're not like adequately telling a story that an audience connects with or whatever, like what are you even doing?
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, yeah, that's all I can say about that. That just makes perfect sense. It's very simple, very straightforward. Just like boom, 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 done.
He was great. I wouldn't go so far as to say he hated, but he had serious gripes about every movie he's ever worked on. Like almost everything we talked about in that class was like production stuff, and like there was a lot of great interesting things about it. But he talks about how all these movies he made didn't work, and like again, like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and Kramer versus Kramer are considered Oscar darlings, made a bunch of money, were career highlights for Dustin Hoffman, and he's like, nah, it was terrible. The script was terrible. Dustin Hoffman said it himself. Like just okay, all right, wow, interesting. So yeah, I'm not going to hold anything to a golden god standard anymore.
That's so interesting to that's so interesting to hear. It's just like, oh, these movies are great, they're wonderful. It's like, no, they're crap. Like,
And I know because I worked on it.
yeah, yeah. I guess probably a different point of view if you were on like the other side, just working on the production day in and day out. No, yeah, definitely understandable. And another part of this movie I really, really like is the score and the music. And I the one of the most iconic I think parts of the score is at the very near the very end of the movie. I'm not going to spoil anything for anybody who hasn't seen it. I think you just need to see it for yourself just to get the full effect of it. But I feel that score on that part especially is iconic. So, how do you feel that the score impacts the tension and the pacing of this movie?
I mean, I would attempt to avoid using the word iconic too much only because I would feel like it would devalue the true icons of which I feel this score absolutely is. Being a person adjacent to the movies and whatnot, like the exact track that you're referring to became like the temp track for like intense scene in a movie for like almost a decade after that. And then the same happened with John Murphy's score for Sunshine. Like that became the entire soundtrack for the movie Kick Ass. Like Murphy just knows how to kick out the jams. And like it's just so like the more you listen to the track, it's just so subtle and it just builds so effectively and it just so perfectly marries to like what is happening in that scene. So every time I see the Pretenders, I'm just like, ugh, how dare you? Um, and like it's a little unfortunate though because I guess it's a kind of an Icarus thing. You're trying to fly too close to the sun. They brought Murphy back for 28 weeks later, and he reused some of his like most like impactful cues from the previous movie. And it's not that you can't do that, but it really didn't feel like he came up with like more music that would have
Yeah.
been in the same vein as that or whatever. But yeah, like every time I watch that movie, like the soundtrack is practically a character. Like it's just so perfect. In the same way that the cinematography is like so perfect. How many perfect decisions can you make in a production and have it all work? I mean, not often enough, but I would say they stuck the landing with 28 Days Later.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of like the cinematography, how do you feel that the look and feel of this movie compares to other zombie or post apocalyptic films? I know there's a lot of great zombie and post apocalyptic films out there. No, we can't talk about them all or name them all, but 28 Days Later, how do you feel that the look and feel of it compares to other films in that vein?
I think that was a thing that a lot of people took a page from in the stuff that came after this, but like the sort of like gritty intensity, I don't know. Like the other versions of this I've seen don't come off as well because I in part because the writing just isn't up to snuff in my personal opinion. Um but yeah, like I mean, it's certainly I mean, like it kicked off like a kind of lo-fi like way of doing things or whatever. Maybe not directly, because I mean, like obviously you have like the Blair Witch Project was the one that like codified the whole like lo-fi horror thing or
Yeah.
whatever. But like the approach that they took it to was just like, well, we don't have the money to make like London be empty for an entire day. So we'll just shoot on digital and we'll be really crafty about how we get things shot or whatever. And that part was the thing that really kicked off like a new trend of indie horror filmmaking and stuff like that. But really, just nobody has done it quite the same way. I mean, I've had plenty of friends who are cinematographers who talk about some of the greatest shot movies they've ever seen. And one of them is like the top of the list is always 28 Days Later. I'm like, for somebody who's like a big like tech person who has lots of like camera equipment and lights and whatnot, it was like, yep, lo-fi, natural lighting.
Yeah,
Can't go wrong.
the London scene, especially whenever Jim's walking through the deserted
Yeah.
city of London, it's just always really fascinated me, and the way it was shot. I always wonder like how they got it to look like that with just all the mess and the chaos just like around, knowing that they would have to pick it up and clean it back up like really quickly. It's just like, or how they got that bus overturned. Like I always like knowing with stuff like that, or want to know how stuff like that happens. Yeah.
So some of that like it's like usually it's just like a shell of the bus or basically or whatever, and so they won't have like the whole bus there or whatever.
Okay.
I've seen a couple of shots that like where the characters maybe an unused shot or whatever, the characters are looking over a bridge into like deserted London, but it was pre doing visual effects and you can see cars driving by and people walking by and whatnot. It was just like they were just very crafty about what angles they chose and how they like set the stuff up basically. And the funnier anecdote is that like the streets of London part where they were shooting very, very early in the morning, usually when all the pubs let out. So Danny Boyle had his most attractive production assistants go into those bars and say, "Hey, would you mind waiting here for a couple of minutes?" And the patrons are like, "Yeah, sure, whatever you say, gorgeous woman." And then they would shoot, and then she'd be like, "Okay, you can leave now."
Oh, that's funny. That's
Yeah,
funny. Whatever you got to do to get the shot.
it's a creative solution, and it worked. Didn't cost anything extra.
No, no, didn't. Just like they got to look, I guess, at Pretty Woman for a few extra minutes or so.
Yeah, drunk guys leaving a bar. Yeah, I think that would keep them in place.
Yeah. Jesus. And when I think of 28 Days Later, like, did it invent zombies? No, it most definitely did not. But it redefined, I feel, horror in particular, especially zombie horror. And whenever I see lists of zombie movies or like top zombie movies, 28 Days Later is always near the top of the list or at the top of the list. So, why do you think that 28 Days Later just hit so hard with people to where it's still so relevant now?
I mean, truly innovative movies like that, like I mean, that's the power of cinema. It's just it's never going to go away. Well, I say never, but like in our lifetimes and the lifetimes of those who immediately follow us, like it will still be a cultural touchstone. And as you said, like it didn't it reinvent well, it didn't invent the zombie, but it did essentially reinvent the zombie. And the kickoff that happened in the early 2000s was 100%, in my opinion, as a result of that. I mean, you got like Shaun of the Dead just came out 2 years later. Dawn of the Dead with running zombies was a huge success in the United States. That was just 2 years later, and like from there it was just zombie, zombie, zombie. Um, but like again, the so they didn't reinvent truly well what Romero was doing. It's the sort of like here's a modern adaptation using the same basic framework or whatever, but like they just managed to nail really everything. Again, every production element you could nail. All the actors are fantastic. The script is really tight. The editing is first rate. There's not an ounce of fat, not a wasted scene in that movie. The score is fantastic. The lighting looks really good. And like it had a sort of grimness to it, but not without like pausing for gaiety that I feel like a lot of these movies don't touch. They don't get into the weeds with some of the like grosser aspects of things and more stunning aspects of things. Like I mean, I feel like a lot of people think like, oh, zombie apocalypse, I'm gonna go wild and beat people up with a baseball bat and go rob a store and stuff like that. One of the first things you get is Jim saying, I want to see my parents. Like I need to go make sure my
Yeah.
parents are okay. And it's like, of course they're not okay. Like the entire country was ravaged over 28 days where you were in a coma. So they're definitely dead. But like that human impulse is the thing that I really do feel like again makes that whole movie work from front to back.
Yes. Like yeah, it's probably one of those films that I feel is pretty close to perfect or pretty near perfect. And I don't say that about a lot of films. Probably I can count on one hand the number of films where I'm just like, I really have no complaints. I have like no notes. It's like technically and just like all around perfect. It would have to be 20 Days Later and then The Thing. John Carpenter's
Do
The Thing.
that.
So I always like that's always the running joke is I have to find an excuse to mention John Carpenter in every episode.
No,
Every
perfectly
episode of the show.
understandable.
Yeah.
Just like I have to find an excuse to mention Ghostbusters and everything I work on or am in or around or whatever, because that's my number one favorite movie of all time. And that is why I'm wearing this exact t-shirt.
Oh, nice. Nice.
Yeah,
Yep. You got your excuse to mention Ghostbusters here.
we got the thing in.
Yeah. Great. Yes.
But yeah, like so again, working in a video store and being a nerd and being obsessive and stuff like that, and also using Letterboxd a lot. Like when I first got into that, one of the main things I wanted to do was try to render a list of like ranked my top 100 favorite movies of all time. And like the early versions of that were really stupid. Like it was just, I would just start naming movies that I liked, and it's like then you remember new ones. Like ah crap, that one's got to go in there. And
Yeah.
so by doing the methodical approach on Letterboxd, I just rated and reviewed every movie I've ever seen. And once I was pretty confident I had all 3,600 of them, whatever it was or whatever, then it was just like, all right, rating system was I use star ratings, and then after star ratings, much like a thumbs up, thumbs down thing, I have little triangles that I use to indicate how much I love the movie, as which I would consider distinct from the star rating for me, which is like how well does this movie realize its goals? Like, I may not be a big fan of like Pixar movies or whatever, but I can appreciate how successfully like Wall-E does what it's trying to do. And yeah, 28 Days Later was one of the 5-star, three thumbs up, basically favorite movies of all time, top of the pile, probably never coming off, along with Ghostbusters, Dawn of the Dead, and like a handful of others.
Dawn of the Dead. Yeah. Good choice there. Good choice. Yeah. I only recently, if we're talking the 78 Dawn of the Dead, I only recently saw it, I think, as of last year. Like, in fact, it's one of those that I always wanted to see. but I had a hard time like finding it on streaming, and I had a hard time finding it on physical. I finally tracked the copy down and I got it. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, the producer of that has been notoriously stingy. I forget what the deal he made with Romero was. Like Romero had the rights to keep making sequels, and this guy had the rights to control like whatever was going to happen with Dawn of the Dead in the future. And he spent like a good couple years, maybe half a decade, trying to do a 3D re-release of Dawn of the Dead, and then ultimately it just kind of fell apart. And during that time, he wouldn't let anybody have the license to movie for the movie to exhibit it or to have it be released on disc, which is why you couldn't find it anywhere for the longest time. The Anchor Bay Blu-ray was like a really like that was a thing that was popping up on eBay for like hundreds of bucks, basically. But then, yeah, no, I mean, if you approached him with the right amount of money, I guess he would be a little bit more primed to ultimately do that. And that was how you got this edition here, which I snapped up immediately because I was like, there's no way. Like, if that once that thing goes out of print, it's never coming back. And that's all three versions of the movie, all the soundtracks, novelization. Like, yeah, it's the kind of thing that a nerd like me would fall asleep under his pillow.
Yeah, I'm going to go to my shelf really quick and show the version of that movie that I've got. I've got all of Romero's major zombie films. Let's see here.
I'm excited to see if I own it as well.
Yeah.
Probably.
Okay, well, for some reason, my copy of Night of the Living Dead escapes me. I can't, like, see it. But, yeah. There's my Dawn of the Dead. And Day of the Dead.
Nice. Yeah, no, that's the one that I have on DVD as well.
Oh, great. Cool. Yeah, I saw that Day of the Dead was on DVD, and even though you could pretty much find that movie on every freaking streaming service known to man, I was getting a copy for myself because I learned my lesson with Train to Busan whenever I thought it would be on every streaming service ever, and they started taking it off just one by one. And I was like, I'm going to get a copy of that for myself too.
I mean, honestly, like I felt like our video store was only maybe a decade away from a revitalization of physical media for movies and whatnot. Because I mean, vinyl has made a pretty impressive comeback, and I
Yeah.
feel like people are going to reach a point with streaming where they're just like, "Are you kidding? Like, I don't want to have to keep paying for the nose for this, like whatever, however many services that I have to watch all these movies or whatever." It'd be nice to just like be able to see the thing that I want when I want to see it, and that was the beauty and the magic of a video store. Like one of our treasured discs was Disney's Song of the South, which they've never actually released on DVD because it's super racist.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it was like, well, I mean, we're not holding on to this movie because we love it, but it is an important piece of cinema history. And if you want a chance to watch it, you're not going to be able to watch it through Disney. You have to come get it from us.
Yeah. I think Guillermo del Toro said something about how people who own I am never going to get like his quote directly verbatim, but it was along the lines of how people who own physical media in a sense are curators. They're historians. They're the keepers of history. That is such a beautiful way to put it. So like even like the goofiest movie that you have on your shelf is a part of cinema history.
100%. I mean, like in having this collection, I mean, every male in my family is a collector of something essentially. My brother, it's like CDs, like music stuff or whatever. My dad, it was like weird 50s trinkets or something like that. We were never understood that one, but that's okay. That was his thing. For me, it's always been movies, and like it's like a combination of it's like sort of like my stamp collection. Like I mean, some of the ones I buy are specifically because they're limited release or there's something special about the edition of it or whatever. But then it's also like I have access to that piece of art now for the rest of my life. And every time I want to talk about movies with people or whatever, if I want them to see this movie, they don't have to pay for it. They can just borrow it from me. I mean, like that whole like lending library aspect to it combined with again it's art that you're curating and it's part of you and you're now part of it. Like I just love that stuff.
Yeah, and this anytime that you want to see it, like you said, you could just pop it on. And I'm seeing we're kind of circling back to physical media in a way, which I'm very happy about because people, like you said, people are starting to get really frustrated with the fact that they can't watch when they want, whenever they want. So yeah, I'm very happy to see that though. Oh, all right. Now, about 28 days later, if nobody had ever seen this movie before, and barring the initial reaction of, okay, why have you never seen this movie before? What would be your pitch to try and get someone to watch it if they were like, well, I don't know?
It's a great question. I don't actually have the answer. Um, so like when 28 Years came out, I found out that a bunch of my friends and coworkers like hadn't seen the first one, and they had seen stuff about the new one and they were interested in seeing it, but like I was like, you know what? We're just gonna watch this at my apartment, like a good group of like 8 or 9 of us or whatever. Some people who have seen it before, some people who haven't. And then have like a good hearty discussion afterwards. One of my favorite things about watching movies with people is that having that discussion
Mhm.
afterwards. And we all
Yes.
went to go see the new one together, so we all got to experience that fresh blood all at the same time. But like, yeah, I really don't feel like I would need to make a really significant pitch other than just like being like it's one of the most important horror movies of the 21st century. I can't think of one that was so impactful, really, just in terms of the way these movies are shot, the way these movies are cast, just the downstream effect of like what movies came out after this or whatever, all the people who misunderstood what was good about it and tried to make versions of it that didn't come off or whatever. Like, just think about the amount of crappy like Jaws takes there were after Jaws came out. Like, it was just a litany of those things. And maybe imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, and maybe some of those movies aren't so flattering, but the imitation itself is.
Yeah. I'd say that's a good enough pitch. Just like, hey, this is one of the most important films of the 21st century. Everything about it is great. Watch it. I'd be like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll give it a shot. Why not? What have I got to lose other than my time?
Yeah, really.
Yeah. So, all right. Now, I like to end and kind of wrap things up with something that I do at near the end of every show called the Retro Lightning Round. So, what I like to do is I like to ask fun little questions related to the movie that we're talking about. And you can give the first answer that pops in your head and just leave it at that, or you can expand on your answer as much as you'd like. So, are
Okay,
you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. First question. If the rage virus broke out here tomorrow, what would be your survival strategy or your first instincts?
Uh, get in my car and start driving, and I'm sure that would get me killed almost immediately. But yeah, I just like go somewhere where there's not a lot of people and try to like see if I can get my bearings in the first couple of days before things get worse. Yeah, that'd be my first instinct. And again, it would probably get me killed.
And you write zombie apocalypse, zombie books. You should have like all the ins and outs and know what to do.
I talk about this with people, and like a lot of people who approach me with that sort of thing, like have like, oh, what's your zombie apocalypse plan? And I'm like, well, I mean, okay, so say you do have a plan, and say that plan involves your car and like a bug out bag, or maybe you have like a reinforced basement somewhere or whatever. All of those things assume that you are near those things, will be able to access them, and it happens in favorable circumstances. So like my whole big thing, not just with like the zombie apocalypse and theories about it or whatever, but also writing is like, if you want to survive, improvise. Like, you don't get to control the circumstance when the thing goes down. So like you have to have heightened situational awareness and figure out how to use the things that are around you, the people that are around you, the buildings that are around you, whatever, in a way that's going to get you through at the very least the first 15, 20 minutes, hour, however long it's going to take. But like you have to be quick on your feet and think about solutions outside the box. That's the only thing that's going to save you, in my opinion. That and
Yeah.
lots of water.
Yep. So situational awareness and water.
Yep.
Okay. Second question. If you could weaponize one everyday object to fight the infected, what would it be and why?
Weaponize an everyday object. I was just thinking about this at work. We have like a paddle for the like ice scrapers or whatever that's about, I don't know, like maybe 6 feet long or whatever, nice and heavy, and I feel like wouldn't require too much like torque to get a good whack in and keep whatever it is away from you. I feel like hockey stick would be pretty useful as well. I mean, I've seen the amount of times hockey players hit each other with sticks and they don't break, so
Mhm.
Those would be the two top ones. Anything that gets you some reach so you don't have to actually touch the thing.
Yeah, don't be like in Shaun of the Dead, just throw toasters and pillows and vinyl records, because that's not gonna work.
I mean, it's the same thing with active shooter scenarios. They say if you're close to the shooter and you don't have anything to defend yourself with, just grab literally anything and throw it at them. It's going to provide enough of
Yeah,
a distraction to give you an opening.
yeah, 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 exactly. All right, the next question is, what scene in 28 Days Later still creeps you out or gives you anxiety no matter how many times you watch it? Oh my god. Oh my god. You had to bring that up. Oh
Yeah.
god.
It doesn't stop me from rewatching it constantly, but it's still
No.
like to this day, yeah, it kills me. It's that like wow.
It's the reason why that part in horror movies is my squick point. Like, I can't handle things that have to do with eyeballs. Like,
Nope.
absolutely not. I will cover my eyes and bury my head.
Hmm.
All right. Next question. And I know we've talked about that this is pretty much a 100% perfect movie, but if someone came to you tomorrow and said, hey, remake this, remake 28 Days Later, is there anything that you would do differently?
No.
No. Then there wouldn't be no point in
I
remaking it then.
If
Good
someone wanted
answer.
to yeah, someone wanted to remake this, why would you mess with perfection? I simply I don't understand what you think you could get out of this. I mean, you'd have to do something so wildly different, like turn it into a musical or something like that. Like that would be the it would, again, so wildly different would be the pitch that would you remake this movie. And you couldn't just like say, "Oh, do a better version of this." Sorry, I can't do that.
Yeah, remake this movie. No. No, I'm not going to. Get somebody else. And then the last of the retro lightning round questions. What is the one hill that you are willing to die on when it comes to this movie?
Boy, yeah, that's tough. I'm trying to think of just conversations I've had about this, disagreements I've had about this. And I can't think of anything that's even like gotten to that point. So yeah, I really have nothing. I'm gonna have to like if I wake up at like 3 o'clock in the, or I shouldn't say 3 o'clock in the morning. If I woke up at 8 a.m., which for me would be still that would kill me or whatever, and say like, oh my god, that was it, that was the thing. I'm gonna have to like text it to you or something like that. But
Yeah.
like I can't think of a hill to die on other than it's essentially perfect. I mean, I couldn't see like if somebody was trying to nitpick like elements of this movie or whatever, I feel like it wouldn't even be just like a disagreement really. Like okay, well, we have two different viewpoints on this one or whatever. Like I think it's essentially perfect, and so does everybody I know who's ever watched it. So the bulwark is pretty strong there.
All right. Well, I will accept that answer. If you get a certain like bolt of inspiration at 3 a.m. and you text it to me, I will include it as a text overlay just on the final edit. So
Perfect.
I will allow it. All right. So before we officially 100% wrap things up, I do want to tell people that if you have not seen this movie, it is definitely worth a watch. I don't think it's available on streaming. Correct me if I'm wrong. If you want to watch it, you will have to buy it, but it's worth buying. Trust me, and trust him too. Yeah, because
Please,
he's
yes. Own and
yes,
take care of your discs.
yes. Because I my Shaun of the Dead disc I've had since the movie was released on disc like about 20
Yeah,
years ago, and it still works. So you take care of your physical media, it's going to last you for a long, 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 long time. All
unless it's a
right.
laser disc.
Yes, unless, oh, yeah. We don't speak of that format. That format is like even older than I am, I think.
Ditto.
Um, all right. So it was a blast, Bryan, to take you off of threads and put you into an episode of Retro Horror School Talk. So thank you for coming on and chatting with me about it tonight. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It was so much fun.
It's really fun to have you here. And before I let you go for realsies, tell everybody where they can find you on social media. Remind people where they can find your books to purchase.
So yeah, most of my handles are either my name, Bryan Way, Bryanway, or the Bryan Way. Yeah, Amazon's the easiest place to find the books. The first two are available for Kindle and paperback. There's shorts. There's six of them that are available only. They were for a while only available on Kindle, but then I gathered them together in this anthology with an exclusive seventh and artwork of the characters. And this is the thing that's going on sale simultaneous to this being released. So that's the one. I mean, minor sales point for it, I guess. Like all of these stories connect to the main narrative of the stories, but I wrote them to be standalone tales of the zombie apocalypse. There's one at a police station, there's one with quarreling lovers, there's one with a serial killer. And so ideally, you just read them and say, hey, that was a fun zombie short. But if you actually read the books, you'd say, wait a minute, all the things that happen in this connect to something else that happened there. So this might be a good in for the Life After series as a person who wrote it.
I think that I've had in my head that I'm going to get your books to read them because I'm very big into zombies as well. And so it's always been back of my mind. It's like, okay, like I'm going to definitely, I've got your books like on my wish list and I am going to get them.
I mean, hey, if you want to get them directly from me, I will personally sign them and mail them to you.
Well, awesome. Awesome. Yes, I would love that.
It'd be my pleasure.
Yeah. Aw. All right, so I feel that this is very sad. So we're going to have to end, but just remember everybody, watch 28 Days Later, and if a zombie apocalypse does eventually end up happening, be sure that you have your survival strategy in mind.